woman's life. It matters to young women when they get started in their jobs. It matters to women who are trying to raise families, whether they're trying to do it alone or whether they're part of a two-income family with a spouse. It matters because it matters in the money that goes into their retirement accounts and whether or not they will be secure in their retirement years. Equal pay for equal work is something women need. We need it from the beginning to the end. And not having it, it's a punch that happens every single day to women. And this is wrong. We shouldn't be doing this. Women have a right to equality here.
And it matters, let me please add, it matters to men too. You know, in a lot of two-paycheck families, if the wife is being discriminated against, then the whole family is suffering. So, you know, it should be a broader social issue. And Lily, it struck me when you mentioned the level of Republican support for your bill. That is a measure of how far right the Republican Party has drifted in just 3 years under President Obama. Because now, 3 years ago, Mitt Romney, I believe, would have said that's a no-brainer. And now he feels that if he's going to court his far-right base, he can't say he would support that.
Well, not only can he not support it, he's doubling down on, you know, a position that is squarely against it, insofar as he's chosen Paul Ryan. I do want to talk about women and the economy overall, because we think about this as sort of a women's issue or a man's issue, but it's really an American issue. And Elizabeth, in an op-ed recently, you were writing that in 2009, most women who filed for bankruptcy had been at one point solidly middle class, and that there were more than 1 million women who filed for bankruptcy. That's more women than graduated from college, received a diagnosis of cancer, or filed for divorce. This is a major issue in America.
You know, this is a go ahead.
Proceed. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, but this is a reminder of what unequal pay does over time to women. It just goes back to the same basic issue. Women work hard, they play by the rules. They get out there, they get an education, some of them get married, they buy homes, they have children, they get good jobs. But they hit a bump in the road, unemployment, a serious medical problem, or a family breakup. And it just turns them upside down financially. And when they're not being paid equally, it means they've got far fewer resources to call on. And that's why it is that we've seen rising numbers of women in bankruptcy. All families, we saw rising numbers of people in bankruptcy, but the number of women filing for bankruptcy was moving much faster than the number of men filing for bankruptcy.
Lily, when we talk about the recession and its effect on women, both in terms of subprime mortgages, unemployment, and getting jobs after the recession, you worked in a field that was fairly male-dominated. And I guess I wonder, in your own personal experience, do you think that women are adequate advocates for themselves in terms of getting what they deserve?
Not always, but there are those of us that do. We do advocate and fight for what we want.
For example.
Yes, because I felt like in my initial beginning that I was being a trailblazer, that this was setting the pace and giving an example to a corporation that women could do these jobs. It was a great job for a female, and it was a good job if you were good in management, and it helped support families. But Elizabeth is exactly right on the hardships. In my case, I've learned that this is just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many families across this nation that are not getting their pay, and as she stated, this goes on for the rest of your life, because the senior group of women that are out there today are like myself. We're outliving our spouses by 10 years. Our income is so much less, not because we didn't work, simply because we did not get the pay we were supposed to.
And Elizabeth, you know, the Institute for Women's Policy research shows us as of June 2012, men have regained 46.2% of jobs they lost since the start of the recession. Women have only regained 38.7% of the jobs they lost. And in some part, that's because men are now taking jobs, and I hesitate to use the word taking, but men are now employed in jobs that used to be largely the purview of women, which is to say education and health services. When we talk about fixing this and getting women back on their feet, which is part of getting America back on its feet, what do you think the message needs to be? And I guess specifically, perhaps, what does the message to everyone need to be, and not specifically towards women? Because I think too often when we talk about women, it's an audience for and by women, and it really needs to be to men, to Americans writ large.
That's right. You know, This is why I got into a Senate race, something I never thought I was going to do. I never thought I'd run for public office. But as I see this, this is really about whose side do you stand on. And I think there are two very different visions for the kind of country America builds going forward. The Republicans have made clear what they want to do. They want to cut taxes for the thin slice right at the top. And then they want to leave everyone else, all of our families, everyone, just to pick up the pieces. I think that the way we build an economy going forward is we ask those at the top to pay a fair share, but we really concentrate on the things that families need, the things that individuals need, the things that working people need. And that means we do things like we invest in education. We invest right now in jobs, putting people back to work. We invest in basic infrastructure, the things that will give our businesses a competitive advantage and help create jobs over time. We invest in research because we build a big pipeline of ideas, and that works for generations to come. In other words, we invest in our people, we invest in our families, we invest in the heart of America, not in the thin slice at the top. It's really two different visions of the kind of people we are and the kind of country we're trying to build.
A sincere thank you to Senate candidate Elizabeth Warren. Great to have you on the program.
Thank you.
Coming up, from Congressman Akin to Foster Freeze, members of the Republican Party continue to show a startling lack of awareness when it comes to women's health. Are we returning to the dark ages? We'll talk